All right, here we go. We're going to continue this chapter, bust it out here and call it a day. All right, so hearsay is inadmissible unless there's exception is applicable. There are quite a few exceptions to the hearsay rule. See page 223 of your book and look at the exceptions. Copy and paste this link into your browser and tell me your understanding of what the hearsay exceptions are, okay? So you guys can learn about the hearsay exceptions. So the exceptions are also on page 223. I want you to tell me your understanding, explain, not just tell me what they are, explain your understanding of the rules, all right? Rules of evidence. Rulings on evidence cannot be assigned on error except a substantial right is affected. So the right of the defendant is affected, okay? And the nature of the error was called to the attention of the judge to alert him or her to the proper course of action and enable opposing counsel to take the proper corrective measure. So what are they going to do to rectify the evidence, and how do they get it in, or how do they dismiss it, okay? In some states, each time that the evidence is offered or referred to, the opposing party must renew its objection to the evidence. So if they try to get text evidence in about a crime or of whatever case, right? Rape, robbery, murder, burglary, whatever the case may be, okay? So they're trying to get text messages in, and they rule against text messages, right? So it's like, well, that's not going to work. However, maybe there's a voicemail about the same type of crime, right? So now it's voicemail about the crime. They can renew the objection about the evidence regarding what's going on. So if they don't have one information, but they're trying to get it another way, or they're trying to get it another way, each time that's brought forward, they must renew the objections. It's not just a blanket or umbrella objection that they ruled that the text message or that communication was illegally obtained, right? So they rule on that. It doesn't blanket everything else on how the information was obtained. So they can still try to find other ways in order to bring the evidence into court, okay? Preliminary questions concerning the qualification of a person to be a witness, the existence of a privilege, or the admissibility. Wow, sometimes that tongue just not working, and having your phone go flying off the table. You guys get to look back on Texas. All right, so the existence of a privilege or the admissibility of evidence shall be determined by the court. Hearings of the admissibility of confession shall be conducted outside of the jury. So, qualifications of a person as a witness. I was qualified as an expert witness in gangs because I worked gangs for 7 years, right? I became an expert witness in gangs. I became an expert witness in Asian gangs, Black gangs, and Hispanic gangs. And I toured all across the United States, giving speeches and telling them about the gangs in California and how once they start in California, they seem to work their way out in order to get across the country, just how it is, right? So at that time, they asked me questions of what determined my expertise as a gang member. So tell them I worked gangs for quite some time, how I identified a gang, all the different schools I went in order to be qualified as an expert, and all the different interviews and interrogations I did with gang members, and how all that information qualified me as an expert. And once all that, congratulations, Detective Gonzalez, you are now a gang expert. Go ahead and tell us all about gang member and gang membership life and all that stuff, okay? Limited admissibility, when evidence that is admissible as to one defendant or for the one purpose, but not admissible as to another defendant or for another purpose as admitted, the court, upon request, will restrict the evidence to its proper scope and instruct the jury accordingly. Again, that would apply because the most I've ever tried at one was 6 defendants in a gang murder case. 6 defendants, right? So all defendants in a gang case, right? You can have one guy, bang, 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 bang. I'm the shooter, I'm the killer. You can have the other person, this gang member over here, provide the gun, right? So some evidence that they're proposing to come forward on one individual for the crime may impact the individuals on another case, so they might have limited admissibility as to not to taint the other gang members involved in the crime, their ability to a fair trial. So the burden is on the parties to object, whether they bring it in or not. So say we got a bunch of evidence, remember, on the shooter, right? The shooter was this guy over here, right? And this attorney for this gang member over here, maybe after the fact, he just drove the suspect away or whatever the case may be, and they don't want some evidence to come across them. It's up to this attorney to look out for the attorney's rights, and not this attorney just like, well, if I bring this forward, it's going to impact you and your defendant. It's up to the individual defendant. Okay. All right. So this is at Jodi Arias. Oh no, this one's a different one. The admission of the documents, the rule of completeness does not prevent the other party from developing the matter on cross-examination or part of her own case or oral statement. So in this case, this defendant here decides to test the judge, and I think on the ruling of evidence, and kind of goes overboard. So you tell me in your opinion what you think you did wrong, or maybe you didn't think anything wrong. Fairness. The fairness rule requires the admission of the completing evidence only when it ought to be in fairness to consider with admitting statements. So is it fair if this evidence is admitted? Watch this video. Tell me 2 things you learned. Relevant evidence is where it has some tendency as a matter of logic and human experience to make the proposition for which it is advanced more likely than the proposition would appear to be in absence of its evidence. Provide an example of this from a news article. So relevant evidence is where it has some tendency as a matter of logic and human experience to make the proposition for which it is advanced more likely than the proposition would appear to be absence of its evidence. So I know I'm going to get questions about it. That's why I read it twice. What I want you to do is find a news article using your snipping tools, copy and paste it into the assignment, and tell me how the evidence they found. So look for trial court cases, look up evidence admitted at trial, find a case where somebody was arrested and they talk about the evidence that were admitted in the trial, and tell me why you believe that that evidence was admitted in a trial from the news article, okay? So it's going to take some research. Again, you don't have, I want you guys, there's 50 states out there. Not everybody used California. In fact, nobody used California. There's 50 other states. California is my state, right? So I want you to tell me why that evidence was used in the case. Hold on just a minute. Okay, because I know there's going to be questions out there about, oh my gosh, what does she want? Here's what I'm going to show you. So in Google, it says trial. This is what I just put in, just real quick, okay? Trial evidence in a murder case, all right? So, of course, you go to Google and it tells you maybe something rolls, blah, blah, blah. But look at this, all right? Case crumbles, killers go free, right? So you can put, again, killers go free because evidence tainted or whatever. Killers go free because lack of evidence or whatever happens. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, right? So I got this, and now it's going to tell me about the killers going free, and it's going to tell me all about it, of what happened. It says, tells me the first of 3 parts. So it says, in the crime scene photo, the fingers of Jackson's left hand are a little more than stumps, fused together from birth. As the picture makes perfectly clear, he was hit. He was all but defenseless when he was executed 2 summers ago, right? I need the police and the ambulance. And then it's going to tell about something that happened where they were let go because the evidence was not allowed in court. So, look at this. Among those free were the 3 men accused pumping 7 bullets in the head of a 19-year-old as he's walked into the court. Let's see. So this group, look, this is how bad it is. This is why you want to make sure your evidence is good. This group has been charged 683 times in rape, carjacking, firebombing, kidnapping, armed robbery, and staging 123 murders. That is horrible. That all the evidence is letting them walk free. So I'm thinking there's a little bit more other than the evidence to be walked free all the time that they're letting to go. So anyway, the detectives have the sole authority to decide how much evidence is to charge them with a murder. So they don't have the prosecution does not have the power to order them to investigate further to strengthen the trial. So what's happening here, it sounds like in this case, you guys will cut this off, submit it to me, and I'm sure there's more in this case. For the sake of time, we're just hurrying up and going through this. So I can sum this up. It sounds like the officers are just going out. All these gang members are killing people. They know they're killing people. They're not taking time to investigate it correctly. They're not going in depth, and they're just willy-nilly arresting people, knowing there's not enough to hold them for the crime because of lack of evidence in this case. But I'm sure there's more if you go on here and read it, okay? So there you go on that. And that's what I want you guys to do is cut it out, send it to me. More information than I'm just giving you, it's just for the sake of time and example. So when I'm asking you for this, go ahead and answer it in that manner, okay? All right. So here's another example about how the killer was released. Okay, so read that. And we'll stop right there and we'll talk about relevant evidence here. What is going on? Oh, sorry, publishing.